So I spent the last week lying in bed recovering from a very bad ear infection. And as is my usual practice when I'm stuck in bed and can't do anything else really, I took to rewatching shows, particularly my favorite seasons of shows. In this case, as I'm sure it comes as no surprise to anyone, I decided to rewatch season 2 of Bridgerton because Canthony always. Anyway, so I'm rewatching the show as you do when you're ill. I'm running a slight fever. My ear keeps sending pulses of pain that have me clenching my teeth because I'm not a fan of meds and I try as much as possible to avoid taking them. So, no ibuprofen, unfortunately, to numb me. Especially from how long and drawn out the will Anthony Bridgerton really make it down the aisle to marry Edwina Sharma drama of season 2. Which then meant that when we finally got to season 2, episode 6, I cheered. Season 2, episode 6, by the way, is the infamous wedding episode where Edwina finally got a good glimpse of her soon to be husband, making googly eyes at her sister and noped her way out of that marriage with a quickness. So, just in case it wasn't clear, I was really looking forward to the scene. But before we got to the altar scene, there was the one with Anthony getting dressed. Benedict is with him doing the final brush through for lint, which when I was watching that, I turned to my very white and orange cat, and the cat hair he had left all over my pillow and me because, he wanted to cuddle because I was ill, which I appreciated, by the way. It's just so much fur, so much hair. But sorry, I digress. ADHD, ADD brain, y'all. Anyway, as I was saying, Benedict is brushing Anthony's jacket. Daphne walks in, expresses her doubts about the wedding, which is Anthony's cue to kick out Benedict's nosy ass so he can talk to Daphne in private. She once again raises his clear interest in Kate and wonders why he's insisting on marrying Edwina instead. Now, this part of the conversation for me went on swimmingly as I was jiving well with it, nodding alongside every word Daphne was saying because she was right, damn it. I had been screaming at Anthony yet again as I did yet another rewatch of the season, calling out his irritating refusal to choose love and follow his heart, and her words were music to my ears. Until Anthony points out that Daphne has it easy because she gets to marry into another family, whilst he is the one saddled with the responsibility of bearing their family name, so that their legacy does not collapse. After all, it is a sacrifice through the years to maintain the respectability of the Bridgerton name that granted Daphne the right to be married into the Hastings family and attain the title of a duchess. And what does Daphne respond to this act of Anthony, showing a very valid frustration at the burden he's had to bear since his early adulthood, back when he was little more than a child himself? She tells him that none of his decisions had ever warranted the respect of his family. Instead, all it's done is make them pity him. And maybe it was the earache. Maybe it was the fact that I was already in a pretty foul mood because I was contemplating if I should just close my eyes and bear with the horrid taste of the pills to get some relief. But the minute Daphne said that, that was the first time that those words actually truly sunk in for me. And I have rewatched this show many, many times, mind you. Look at my many Bridgerton videos. But the minute the word sank in, I found myself screaming, the fucking audacity. So yes, let's talk about the casual cruelty of Daphne Bridgerton, y'all. And if I'm a bit harsh, blame it on me willfully skipping out on my pain medications and suffering way too much in the last weekend. Because I am in the mood to flay someone. And it might as well be the Duchess of Hastings herself. Now, before I get into the video proper, a lot of you have talked about how you loved hearing the sound of my voice and were wondering if I could make an ASMR channel, which I have now done. I am going to be posting like folk tales I grew up listening to, myth I loved and enjoyed reading about as a child, just with my own little spin on it. It's story time, it's sleep stories. That is actually the name of the channel, Noria Sleep Stories. So for those of you who love the sound of my voice and who would love to hear me either read you a story to sleep or read you a story to help you unwind, you can consider checking out that channel. My first video is live on it right now as you're watching this. So after you're done with this, just check the description bar for the link to that channel and go Give it a listen. If you like what you hear or you enjoy it, consider subscribing to the channel. It would mean the world to me. And if you have any feedback and stuff, please just let me know as well in the comments of that video. And I would work and improve on it because I would like to post videos on there weekly, just sharing my stories. So with that said, let us get back to the main video, which is all about the cruelty of Daphne Bridgerton. And you know what? I am going to start off by extending Daphne some grace. I recognize the fact that within the story, she's a very sheltered woman. Bridgerton season 1 has her officially being introduced into society with all the weight of living up to the diamond of the season expectations being placed on her. Like she tells Eloise, perfection is something she's always had to seek out. And as we know from other Regency era novels and stories, the eldest daughter does have the incredible responsibility of marrying well, as her choices set things up for her younger sisters. Like, I know that John is amazing and all, trust me. But a core reason why it's so easy for Francesca to initially be paired up by the Queen with Lord Samadani, who is a Marquis, and later end up with John, who is a Count, is because her sister is a Duchess. In a highly classist society like Regency England, within which the story is set, the eldest daughter always sets the stage for her younger ones, and it is up to her younger sisters to then run with the social opportunities that her marriage has thus provided. Case in point, the reason why Lady Bertram is so pissed at Fanny's mother for marrying an unsuitable match after she was able to secure herself a baronet. So do I agree that Daphne Bridgerton, as the eldest daughter in the Bridgerton household, bore that responsibility on her own shoulders and was dealing with that pressure of having her sister's futures rest on her? Yes, I do. And it is because I am aware of that fact that her conversation with Anthony irked me so much in the second season. But I will come back to that in a bit. For now, let's focus on season 1 Daphne and the casual cruelty she displays. And I do think it is important for me to state that when I say that Daphne Bridgerton is casually cruel, I am referring to the kind of cruelty that is not actively thought through or planned. It is more about her being careless with her words and actions and hurting others in the process. And the reason why I bring this up is because people do often talk about Penelope being cruel and Portia being cruel, which I do agree with, as they have most certainly had their moments. But a lot of the fandom does seem to skip over Daphne's cruelty, which is why I am making this video. Which also means that I will start by addressing the elephant in the room, which I'm pretty sure practically everyone watching this video right now would agree with me on. Daphne's choice to respond to Simon's deception by sexually assaulting her husband is one of the most cruel acts that she does in the story. Her choice to then proceed with gaslighting him about her actions, pivoting the conversations to how he betrayed her and lied to her and took advantage of her naivety, which all amounted to her never actually taking ownership or responsibility for her action, was to me one of the most cruel things we got to watch on Bridgerton. Because it's one thing for us to justify that Daphne did what she did in order to test out a theory that Simon had been lying to her. Maybe there's a way in which you can look at that scene to try and justify her actions. That is your prerogative. But I think what makes everything so much more damning in my book was the fact that afterwards she centered her pain and the betrayal she was feeling, made that the entire focal point of their conversations and arguments, actively brushed off Simon's own betrayal at her actions, and willfully glosses over Simon pointing out to her that he had told her that he can't give her children before the proposal, and she had been okay with it back then during the duel. But see, Daphne was never going to admit that what she had done was wrong, that she had violated Simon's agency as well, because to her, her anger and rage at what had been done to her justified whatever actions that she meted out to Simon, which to her was her punishing him for the way he had lied to her. And she was going to stand on that moral high ground no matter what. That was what did it for me in that scene. That the show eventually had Simon come around to wanting kids by virtue of Daphne promising to stand by him and help him be a good father to their children, which is great, and I love that. But the absence of an apology on her part following her action was something that for me would always remain as one of the most cruel things she does in the story. And then there's the conversation she has with Violet. And no, I am not referring to when she accuses her mother of keeping her uninformed about sex and what it entails, because to me, that scene and her anger during the scene was very valid. She was right to lash out at Violet, who sent her off unprepared without any of the information she needed to navigate her marital bed. No, I am referring to before that. When Violet, who was still convinced that Simon loved Daphne and was wondering why Daphne was entertaining the prince, was reminding her daughter that showing up to the ball with the gifted jewelry would signal to the prince that Daphne was actively considering his proposal. To Violet, that was an absolutely terrible idea, as she was convinced about Daphne and Simon's love for each other and wanted her daughter happy. And she could see in that moment that Daphne wasn't excited for her possible upcoming engagement with Prince Frederick. Daphne, frustrated and wanting Violet to stop pressuring her, cruelly shatters her mother's delusions by pointing out that everything she had seen was all a lie. A scheme concocted by Daphne and Simon to get Daphne the best match and the mamas off of Simon. Now, I am aware that Daphne was angry and hurting in that scene. She was angry at Simon for not choosing her and Violet for haranguing her on the issue, especially considering the fact that she does know that Simon would not show up for her. I am aware, and I am not invalidating Daphne's blow up in that scene. It is pretty justifiable in my book. And it's definitely something I might have done as well, should I have been in her situation. However, it does not take away from the fact that Daphne did lash out at Violet cruelly in that scene to get her mother to shut up. And she did that in a way that she knew would hurt Violet the most. To show her love-focused mother that all the love she thought she could perceive between Daphne and Simon was all a ruse and they were play acting for her and the rest of the ton. Now, we both know that that is a lie, that Simon does have real feelings for Daphne at that point and vice versa. And hell, Daphne probably does have her suspicions as she kept waiting for Simon to say something when he corners her in the gardens at the ball that night. But in that moment, Daphne Bridgerton was hurting and wanted to hurt someone. And she knew the best way to do so was to tear to shreds Violet's delusions about her match. And this is why she follows that scene by apologizing to her mother when she sees how hurt she is by the truth. Because at that point, Daphne knew that she did that to met out some sort of pain and that she did succeed in it. And what follows is her and Violet hugging each other as Daphne is given the room to grieve the loss and pain of Simon not wanting her enough to commit to her before she heads off to go see Frederick. And speaking of Frederick, and this could be read as an aside, and maybe you disagree with me, please let me know if you do or don't in the comments, but I do think that the way that she basically goes after this man, who she knows clearly likes her and wants her and would like to be committed to her, even though she has someone else in her heart and is imagining someone else in his stead when he touches her. The fact that she basically strings this prince along all up until Simon finally makes the commitment to marry her post the duel, to me, it read as just a little bit cruel. Like, do I totally understand where she's coming from and the reasons for her actions, especially considering the time that they were in? Hell yeah. The heart wants what it wants, and even though I kept screaming, girl, you could have been a princess, every couple of seconds at my screen, I understood that she wanted the love of Simon Bassett, and that is fine. The Duke of Hastings is hot as hell and can most certainly get it. It doesn't mean that I didn't find her handling of Prince Frederick a bit cruel though. Understandable, yeah, but cruel. And then there's the conversation with Anthony. Yes, we've come full circle because, like I stated at the start of the video, I found it very ironic that the same young girl who understood the burdens of what it meant to be the first daughter and the hope and expectations that their society places on her and her marriage as a result would actually be able to tell Anthony Bridgerton that all his actions and decisions haven't earned him their family's respect. Instead, all it has earned him is their pity. Which, firstly, girls, speak for yourself. I don't think Benedict would agree with those words, and I'm pretty sure Hyacinth and Gregory would disagree wholeheartedly. After all, for those of us who've read the novels, Gregory does tell Anthony and Kate that he has zero recollection of Edmund as a father. Instead, it was Anthony who raised him, who was both brother and father to him. I get it. Daphne was frustrated in that scene. Anthony was being his usual hard-headed self, and anyone would want to scream. But what she does is what she's always done previously. She wields her words as weapons, carelessly tossing them around to cause the most pain she can, because she knows her family and can cut to the heart of what their biggest fear, worry, and concern is. She did it with their mother, which is why I brought up that scene, and now she's done it with Anthony. And the words do stick. I mean, later on in the next episode, when Anthony meets with Kate at the gazebo, he does share his fears of his siblings not liking him. And when I got to that admission of his, I hurt because it seemed like a fear he had always had. One that sat beneath his skin and which Daphne carelessly tore open with her words, because Anthony had lashed out at her for trying to use their father's memory to convince him about the errors of his upcoming marriage. I repeat, do I think that Daphne was right in trying to caution her brother from making the biggest mistake of his life? Yes, she was. I do agree that everything with Edwina and Kate was a mess, and Anthony, because he was so terrified of falling in love and what it would entail, had screwed things up royally. However, do I think that her words to him were warranted? No. Anthony might be the hard-headed big brother, but he is still someone who was justified in pointing out to her that it was because of how seriously it took on the responsibility of handling the estate that Daphne was able to make such a respectable match. It is because of him working himself to the bone that Benedict is able to live the carefree life of an artist and Colin is able to travel the world. It is because of how he's been rock solid, holding up his family, that the Bridgertons are able to be the family that they are, envied and thought favorably of by the rest of the ton, even after Edmund died. All of that was virtue of the effort of Anthony Bridgerton, and his siblings see that and appreciate that. To claim that he hasn't earned their family's respect was false. To claim that all he got from his siblings was false. It is instead Daphne taking that moment to be just a bit cruel, as she sometimes is, and gods, I hated that so much. But that's just me. What about you? Do you agree or disagree that Daphne does have moments where she is casually cruel? Please let me know in the comments. Like this video if you've watched this far and haven't done so yet. Share it if you want. Support me on Patreon if you can. And until tomorrow's video, do remember, obsessing over the things you love, perfectly valid coping mechanism.